You are listening to the Cinderbury Chronicles. Journey with us into the world of Copper Hollow.
Welcome to Copper Hollow, a rundown borough in the vast industrial city of Cinderbury. Grab a cuppa and settle in. This is our 9th episode. I'm P. Rose, narrator and voice of Amelia Wright and the Rat Lady in this episode.
And I'm Orphin, and I'll be the voice of the editor of the Cinderbury Times, Albert, and Jimmy of Jimmy's Bits and Pieces in this episode.
Chapter 8, Scrapfield. The murder rate breaks records once more. The police sit on their hands as criminals have free rein. Protection rackets are an unspoken tax on small businesses. But does this play into the hands of large corporations as they work their employees to the grave and back out again? It seems as if they are the only ones immune to this crime wave. The impoverished have two choices: to work beyond death or to become criminals themselves. Yet the government does nothing to stop this. Indeed, they let the corporations and criminals, if there is any distinction these days, exploit the situation while people starve.
You've been warned, Teddy. This isn't a newsletter for one of your fringe anarchist groups. We can't print this.
Note from the editor to Teddy Fletcher, preprint draft of the Cinderbury Times. The automatons rest in the dining room, patched up as much as possible given the limited resources available. Irene whizzes between them, trying to comfort them as much as she can, even offering them pens and paper, but the bots seem hesitant to communicate. Amelia leans against the wall, sweat still dripping from her brow, and her hands black with soot and grease. She looks down at Blinky, leaning against the wall in an imitation of her. You did a great job, Blinky. I think, together, we may have saved a few lives. He grins at her. You deserve to take it easy now. You did good. Blinky stands up straight and salutes Amelia before marching out of the room.
You're just like her, you know.
Albert tells her, lurking in the doorway. He is a stark contrast to her, his clean suit, her dirty apron. I don't know. I could barely keep them together. I'm not sure if that one is going to last the night. She nods to a particularly dishevelled bot sitting at the table, its head barely hanging on to its shoulders.
My dear, I understand you've been pondering whether or not you will stay on with us here. I know too well at my age that there is no use in arguing with the right woman. After all, they're always right. In all seriousness, this place would be lucky to have you. I would be honored if you would carry on my legacy.
Amelia hadn't been expecting this. Not from Albert, in any case. He is the grumpiest, most difficult man/elder she has ever known. He so rarely has anything good to say, it comes as quite a blow to hear him speaking of her so positively. For this reason, it takes her a moment to find her voice. Thank you? Honestly, though, I don't think it would work. I feel as though I barely know the orphanage anymore, and I'm not nearly experienced enough for the position. I think it would be a mistake. Her shoulders slump and she pushes herself upright. I ought to go and get some parts. Can you keep an eye on this lot? She asks. Albert nods.
Of course. Just think it over. Anything you don't know, I'll teach you. After all, who knows more about automatons than Dr. Albert Wright himself?
Amelia can't believe her ears, and not just because she had never heard him speak of himself in the third person before. Albert had refused to teach anyone since his own son. He would certainly make comments when he felt that someone was doing something wrong, but never actively teach. I'll think about it. With that, she goes to clean herself up before leaving. The streets of Copper Hollow are unusually quiet. The smell of smoke lingers in the air, stronger than usual. She walks down the long road to the train station, hopping on the first train to Scrapfield. Scrapfield is the last stop on the line, and passengers have to get off the train quickly as it never stays there long. Amelia jumps off immediately, the conductor quickly closing the doors behind her, fearing the rabble would defy his authority and hitch a free ride. The train makes its hasty retreat. The rusted station is neglected by the officials, covered in graffiti, and part of the roof had collapsed years ago. Seagulls nest in the rubble, their cries echoing through the station. Traps can be seen in every crevice, bits of food rigged to closing containers. The pests had learned not to go near them. There is a nip in the air and Amelia throws up the hood of her long purple duster, feeling at the coins in her left pocket and the penknife in her right. She had got it for the tiny tools on it, but she knows the area well enough to realise that something drastic could happen to anyone, at any moment, especially an outsider. She leaves the station, passing children who rummage through the piles of rubbish, either looking for trinkets to sell or playing games. Paths have been eroded through the rubbish and makeshift homes like city streets. She follows them, keeping her wits about her and an eye out for anything that might be of use in the towers of scraps. The path winds its way to a marketplace. It's oddly beautiful despite the stink. A meshwork of pipes are welded together and stuck into the ground so that wires of lights can hang between them. Each stall is lit up in some way or another, competing to make their stand more eye-catching than the rest. People mill around as the smell of crispy fried rat wafts through the air, a delicacy that reminds Amelia of her days here as a child playing with Larkin and the other kids. Her father, the adventurer Everett Wright, would bring her along when he was searching for parts or visiting friends. A woman calls out as she passes, "Crispy rat and chips! 80p! Get it while it's hot!" Behind the stall, Amelia catches a glimpse of rats in cages. Others hang skinned behind her, their tiny fur coats lying in a basket to the side of the stall. She approaches the first scrap stall, the sign reading Jimmy's Bits and Pieces. A prickling feeling runs down her neck as she brushes past a broad tattooed man leaving the stall. He looks straight at her. She looks back but quickly averts her gaze. The hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. She looks back but she can't see him anywhere. An old rotund man stands behind the counter with greasy long hair and an unfortunately mottled face. Metal scraps litter the stall with no organisation to be seen.
What do you want, girlie? Your daddy sent you here?
The man sneers at her. She looks through the parts, tutting at the man's incompetence. "You are aware that putting magnets next to a navigation drive is a bad idea?" she mumbles, moving the navigation drive as far away from the magnets as possible, fearing it's already too late. The man pushes himself upright as Amelia looks over the parts, pushing her hair behind her ear.
Listen here, missy. I know all there is to know about robotic assembly. Don't think a pretty little thing like you can just waltz in here with your fancy words and tell me how to do my job. I bet you don't even know what a navigation drive does.
She stops herself from rolling her eyes. It's easy to forget what the vendors can be like, especially in Scrapfield. Maybe I don't know as much as you, but any mechanic worth their salt knows not to put a magnet next to an exposed navigation drive. Anyway, I'm sure it was one of those children running around that mucked with your display. An expert like you would never make such a mistake. She forces herself to smile at the brutish man.
Oh, well, see, it was just a test. I didn't think a pretty face would know her way around machines. What can I do for you?
He asks, relaxing as he leans against the iron sheet wall, warping the flimsy metal. Not just a pretty face. I don't suppose you have any voice discs for a Zootan B class in the 20 to 35 series, or perhaps a spare leg for the same? Amelia asks, playfully pushing her hair back and shifting her weight to one leg.
Oh, you're fat out of luck. No voice discs,
He announces.
As for the leg of a B-21,
The man pulls a leg from under the stand and places it on the counter. The leg is shiny, which surprises her. It looks like it's had a fresh coat of paint and there's no serious damage. Amelia inspects it. Slick? It should fit. Right size and all. I'll have to see about another fitting for it, but it looks good. I'll take it for 8.
you joking? 14.
The man counters. I'd be willing to go up to 10, she retorts. The man eyes her up.
I'll give it to you for 12.
Amelia shrugs and takes out the money. I expect a full refund if this thing is useless, she tells him as she rifles through her purse.
A refund? Where do you think this is? Golden Heights?
She forces a smile once more, and the man sighs.
But I'll do it for you, pretty face. I won't forget you.
The man smiles at her, looking her from head to toe, his smile more horrifying than his frown.
Come here any time, sweetheart.
Amelia takes the leg and rushes to the next stall. Stall after stall, she finds the voice discs elusive. As she leaves the final makeshift premises, she spots the large man she had brushed up against earlier watching her, his forearm bearing a bird tattoo. That was chapter 8 of Copper Hollow. I hope you enjoyed it. This is part of a podcast series where we record the audiobook and you get to be the first ones to listen for the wonderful price of free. We started out this chapter with Teddy Fletcher's feud with the editor, which will become a bit of a running bit within the series.
Yeah, Teddy is definitely not terribly happy with the job he has, I think.
I think he likes doing the work, but I feel like he is limited by the powers that be.
Yeah, let me rephrase it. I think Teddy is not happy with the editorial oversight that in the papers he ends up writing for.
And we can see he's actually kind of pushing the editor here a bit. I think this is a purposeful thing. I think he wanted more time and he was just doing this to be like, throw this at him so that he can complain while I actually do the work that I need to do.
Yeah, I think also it's like frustration, so they're just saying what he actually wants to say out of frustration, and as you said, buying for time and doesn't really care what, as long as he puts something in. And yeah, the editor isn't happy.
And I think he's got enough clout in the newspaper that they're not going to get rid of him for this. Like, I feel like it's one of those things where he has enough people read his articles that they aren't going to walk away from this.
Yeah, I'm sure he's testing the waters there. I'm sure eventually they might, but Teddy doesn't care. Teddy is just being a journalist.
And here we can see that he has some commentary on the difference between criminals and corporations and how there's not really a difference.
Yeah, definitely a left-wing take on this.
Yeah, he's just kind of saying that either way, the people at the top win, whether people are employed by the gangs or by the corporation.
Whether there's crime or not as well. Like, the corporations seem to be using crime almost as another angle in which they can control the city, and whether they can thrive regardless of it, and it keeps other people down, like small businesses.
Yeah, exactly. So Amelia fixed the automatons from the last episode. We see her here telling Blinky did a great job and sweating and really kind of a mess after getting them all functioning.
Yeah, we're sort of in the debrief after the previous episode where she had to step up and really do Ada's job and take on the role of the matron, even if she doesn't intend on taking it on permanently.
And the way that she treats Blinky here is really nice. Like, she instantly tells him that he did a great job, that he was so helpful and useful, and like really compliments him on everything he did, making him feel like he has contributed a lot, which I think he did anyway.
I mean, he did, yeah.
But almost giving him most of the credit.
We talked about Blinky in the previous episode, and I think Blinky genuinely has a head on his shoulders. Like, I don't think, because he's mute, I think Blinky understands the situation and was a huge help, understands what is needed.
Oh, absolutely.
And what everything is and where everything is and the stakes.
He is very aware of the situation. But here, Amelia's really pushing home how much she appreciates him and his help.
Absolutely.
And we can see that Albert almost respects her more now after this. There is this moment where he even offers her to be her mentor, which isn't something he really goes around offering.
Yeah.
He is the great Albert Wright. He has been known for ages to be the great Albert Wright. And people come to the orphanage and they ask for his tutelage and he does not give it.
Well, I think he's tried to be a curmudgeon about it. He's tried to guilt her into taking on the role, to say this is your duty, etc. And now he's trying a much more softly approach and just praising her. But I think you're right in that there is a certain respect that he sees a competent Wright in her, even if she thinks she's failing.
Yeah, because, I mean, in fairness, she's just dealt with a very difficult situation, and it seems like everyone's getting through it. She does question the ability of one of the bots to get through the night, but she has put them in a much better position than what they were when they came to her door.
For sure, that's 100% the case.
And so now she kind of has to ponder whether she will take on this role as matron of the orphanage, as Albert asks, but she still doesn't feel like she's really up to that. She has this self-doubt within her.
Yeah, I think this is actually a trait that travels through a lot of rights, but we'll see more and more of this as the story goes on. We won't get too deep into it, but for sure, Amelia feels inadequate.
And I think the building up of the right name really adds to that in her mind. Like, she sees all of these stories of the great rights. Albert is always bigging up the right name and telling these grand stories and pushing this idea of what it means to be a right. And so when she compares herself to these stories, she feels like she can never live up to these stories.
Yeah, she's also been precluded from having the kind of childhood and adulthood that rights traditionally have, where they sort of get time to be wild, go off, spend money, explore, get experience, get high quality education, because he's got more of an apprenticeship with Tom, which I'm sure that Wrights have potentially had apprenticeships before, but the Wrights would have traditionally had very expensive education. They were elite, and now she's in a world where they're not, you know?
She's in a weird situation. They can have all these stories because they were able to travel the world and do all these grand things, whereas she doesn't have those same opportunities that they had.
Yeah, and I think that's part of her contention with taking on the matron, is as much as she doesn't feel adequate, and I think that's huge, I think she also feels robbed.
Yeah.
She doesn't have stories of her own to tell yet. She doesn't have experience of her own to tell yet, you know, to act on. So it's just, she's hesitant.
I think she's also underplaying, though, her own experience. Like, I think it's one of these things where you hear these great stories from other people and you think, oh, I've no good stories to tell, but you haven't made it into a story yet. This is something that I saw a lot with my family, and, you know, growing up, all of my family, they can spin a tale, no bother. They're very good at spinning a tale. And I learned how to tell stories from the way that they would take something very mundane and weave it into a story.
Yeah,
and it would be fun.
There's not always as much behind it.
Yeah, exactly. It would be fun and silly and playful. But the thing is, if you aren't trained in doing that, almost, if you haven't heard people doing that, if you haven't experienced the part where the story's happening and then come back to see how people tell that story, it's hard to be able to see those stories within your own life.
Yeah, and you just put it up on a pedestal. I mean, we do this with historical figures as well all the time. We think of historical people as being incredible, having done incredible things and having a huge legacy, but of course they were just normal people like the rest of us.
They were just normal people.
And a lot of their legacy was not very well thought out. It was just them surviving, them striving. And I think in general that applies to a lot of our own lives as well, when we don't get to, say, go on foreign holidays in this, and we don't get to rub shoulders with interesting people in this. We think like that we won't be any good without it. And I'm not saying these are fantastic things. The point is, it's not zero sum. It is really good to get life experience. It's really good to go out there and experience different things. We all should, and we all have in some degree. But it doesn't actually matter at your core competency. If you approach things with intelligence, thoughtfulness, you don't have to have the most worldly life experience or thing. You know, look at like what's happening in places, say, even like Ukraine. Lots of these people were just normal people before they become drone operators, or they work making camouflage, or they help writing articles in the press. You know, like a lot of these people had no life experience before this, tumultuous events, historic events started happening. It's the same with World War II. Like, a lot of people wouldn't have done anything, but then they sign up to be a paratrooper or a pilot or, you know, something, and then incredible things happen, but they were nobody before. So I think sometimes we big up
This is it.
the stories.
I think World War II is a great example, because I think of all those women who were cast as mother and housewife, and these ideas that we have of women in the past, and then suddenly when the world needs them, of course they can do all these things. The thing that we have is that it's almost, you need to romanticize your life a little bit. Like, you need to be able to see yourself in a different light, so that you can see the actual
you can get that perspective,
series of events that can give you this story. Because so often I think we don't think of ourselves as being very special, or we're just an ordinary person. You know, this is a very common thought that many of us have. But every individual has unique experiences that make them them.
100%. I think often this really applies to how people consider their own trauma as well. Because a lot of people don't realize they have any trauma. They think of themselves as normal, as surviving. Oh, like nothing bad happened to me ever, or everything's all right. And it's important not to victimize yourself as well. Like it shouldn't be extreme. Just some people should, because they have been through some terrible things. Like some people should bring forth their disadvantages and say to themselves, yeah, I didn't achieve because I had this hanging over my shoulders. That's actually healthy as well. But for most people, you can pick up trauma and not have to think of yourself as a victim. For instance, growing up as dyslexic in school, I don't see that as anything but normal. And because I got lots of help and because I had a loving family that was supportive, then I didn't think of that as a hardship. But looking back at it as a rational adult and being as rational as possible, or if I heard it from somebody else struggling with the problems I struggled with, that is actually a really big impediment. I think often in school, I thought, well, I didn't get beaten for my dyslexia. I didn't get hit for my dyslexia. So I'm like privileged. So I'm not a victim of anything. I didn't get hit with a ruler or spanked or, in any other way brutalized as a child. So it's like, I can't complain. But I think that's a really flawed way of thinking. And as I said, if you apply it to somebody else, you go, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. I think we can often downplay our own difficulties within life.
Yeah.
This is just so common. And I think as well, because it's normal to us, we think it's normal to everyone, but that isn't the case.
100%. And often we think somebody else has an idyllic life. On the other side of the coin is we think, oh God, my friend, like they've money, they don't have the problems that my family has with money. And they go on foreign holidays and their dad is always smiling and driving in a nice car and their mother's always smiling and driving in a nice car. Oh, they must be great. They must be a brilliant family. And then you find out that, like years later, there was dysfunctional alcoholism rife throughout their family. And actually, the car was bought on debt, so they did have financial problems. They just never let everybody known. And the kids didn't feel like they could talk to them. And you find out all these things that totally rewrites the narrative. And you go, oh. And what you thought were the most privileged people as well, from your outside perspective, you learned, oh, well, actually, they grew up with a lot of hardship as well, like it wasn't easy.
Yeah, we have a lot of people, keeping up with the Joneses, the kind of people who have a facade about the way they want the world to see them. A lot of depth inside, and most families are quite chaotic and not as perfect as the picturesque family that we like to think about. There's always going to be things under the surface.
Yeah, and in that same way, in the Wright family, there's so much failure going on among the Wrights. I mean, and we'll find out a lot of the history of the Wrights and all the tribulations and problems within that family. But for Amelia, she should already have the inkling because the Wrights are in decline and it's not her fault. I think she almost thinks of it as her fault. I mean, she bigs up Ada as well. And Ada basically spent a lot of money, and so did previous generations. I don't think it was Ada's singular doing that brought the downfall, not at all.
This idyllic story, a great example of this is, remember, in the 2010s, and there was all these tech entrepreneurs building things in their garage. Oh, they're just normal guys. And you're like, having a garage is a privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was a type of privilege as well, like having that space where somebody else wasn't using it. But more importantly, that's fair enough, and I appreciate their hard workmanship, but there is also a degree of fabrication to it. Maybe they did that for a few days or a few weeks or maybe a year or two, and then they moved on to something bigger. Often they get seed capital. It's like the Elon Musk bit. Did he come from a massively wealthy multimillionaire family? No, but he still came from millionaires.
They had
serious wealth.
right?
And actually, there's a lot of allegations of
Emerald?
Yeah, there's kind of contention over the story, but it is true that he had, Emerald Mine, I think it might have been, but it is true that his dad owned a stake in a mine at least, and that the money, even if they struggled financially, as in they could have had debts, they had huge assets to sell and to draw on, and he was able to get a visa to America and have money in his pocket as much as he'll downplay that.
I think one of the things he says, he came to America with nothing except for a couple of emeralds in his pocket.
Yeah, a couple of emeralds. I don't know. There's so much contention over Elon Musk that I won't get into the facts of this. Only to say that I don't think the truth is that he like only got there through hard work. He had plenty of against, and that's okay. That's fine. I'm not against, like, that's not the bit of Elon Musk I'm against, but it's the selling of the story of hardship that I'm like, no, you face as much hardship as everybody else. And also, it's the idea that they overcome great barriers by themselves.
Yeah, this great man lie. But yeah, there's the great man lie where you have the
Yeah.
facade of this person and you think they're better than they are. And I feel like, especially with the tech entrepreneurs more recently, we've seen that image shatter.
Yeah, 100%. Another thing with great men kind of myths, like you take somebody like Churchill, who did do incredible things. I'm not actually entirely against Churchill, but he made terrible decisions as well. Like there was the Dardanelles where there were a complete cock up, and many people lost their lives in these military operations, and he was presiding over it. But he kept on going with his political career until he ran success. He didn't get in his head about it, and we can view that as a good thing, and it is. He kept on going. I appreciate that perseverance, but you could also say things could have gone very differently. And I think we can take two good sides from that. One is keep on persevering, keep on trying. So long as you're genuinely trying to do your job and you want what's best and you're not just hanging in because it's your own personal gain, that's fine. Keep on going. But on the other hand, don't put these people up on a pedestal. I mean,
No,
this is the other thing. It's about
this is the problem.
the genocide that happened with India where they shipped out food for the benefit of Britain to the starvation of those who were actually growing the food in India. It was disgraceful.
Yeah, I mean, this is so common. This is happening all the time, Right now, we have people starving so they can send us their food right now.
Well, yeah, absolutely. There's famine in in Ethiopia for, I don't know, it may be a good few years
But
ago
I'm also
now.
talking about the cost of food, like the way that it costs them.
Yeah,
to-
I mean, you can see how the Ukraine war, with the initial drop in grain production, it didn't impact Europeans as harshly as it impacted people, say, in Egypt. And Egypt exports a huge amount of food to Europe. So it was a bit perverse that bread prices could be going up through the roof in Egypt and then they're sending the food to Europe. Now, I'm not saying they're making a profit on the food to Europe. They have to have a means. But it is still a bit perverse that we don't allow this to affect each party more equally. I mean, we rigged the game for sure.
Oh, we definitely have. This is constant. I know there's a story that I think Einstein, a lot of his work was done by his wife and they worked on it together, but she didn't get the credit. It was just him that got the credit. And the only reason that Marie Curie got the credit of being a great scientist was because her husband stood by her side in a way that Einstein did not. And, behind every great man is a great woman.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and often there's teams of people as well. The other thing is a lot of the time a central figurehead gets a lot of credit. I mean, most recently you had like Oppenheimer film, and there's nothing, Oppenheimer did lots. I'm not trying to diss on Oppenheimer. But there's a whole team of talented people. And really, either through self-promotion or through the creation of a narrative to sell to people, certain people get disproportionate amounts of credit.
They do. They definitely do. And even when these people try to fight against it, when they try to say, no, it wasn't me, it was an entire team of people, still they are credited because it is hard to credit everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I mean, and it can be part of the narrative. You think of Hidden Figures, and I'm sure there's legitimate, shortcuts, creative license taken with a film, but at the end of the day, there were lots of African-American women who calculated trajectories, who did a huge amount of hard work. It's the same during the war. Again, a huge amount of women in Britain did vital calculations, both for ballistics and for aircraft, but also for like code breaking and all sorts. But they just didn't get the credit,
So this is just a common thing, and we always need to be wary of a good narrative, because a good narrative, about, especially when it refers to a singular person, often leaves out all the dark bits.
Yeah, absolutely. We just need to be a more nuanced approach and be careful of putting people up on pedestals. And going back to the story, yeah, I think Amelia really treats herself too harshly, and I think she puts people like Ada and Albert up on too high of a pedestal.
Yeah. No, she absolutely does. Even though she can see the flaws within Albert constantly, she still thinks of him as this great man.
Absolutely. He, within the rights, he occupies a legendary status, but the truth is, he's actually the one survivor who you could blame because he's presided over the downfall of the rights throughout his lifetime. I mean, he's basically been the entire extent of their downfall. For better or for worse, I'm sure he has his reasons, which is another element. But
Yeah, we'll talk about that another time.
and then Amelia makes peace with that. She's saying, maybe I'll take up a position, and she goes off to Scrapfield.
So when she leaves, the whole of Copper Hollow is quiet after the fire, and I think this is partly because of the police raid scaring people off, and partly because people don't want to really deal with whatever the gangs were up to.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of scrutiny on the area from the police, as you said, but also the gangs will not tolerate any snitches or anything like that. So there's a
So
mood
everyone's
in the
just
air.
keeping to themselves.
And I'm sure people lost houses, etc. So it's another tragedy for people that are already beset by tragedies.
Exactly. So she gets to Scrapfield and the train barely stops because they don't like stopping at Scrapfield. And the way Cindery treats Scrapfield is quite horrific. The station is in bits. You have to jump off the train quickly just to be able to get there. It's just, Cinderbury doesn't treat Scrapfield very well. It's just this mess of a place where, oh, if you've got nowhere else to go, you can go to Scrapfield. We don't care what happens here.
Yeah, a no-go zone for a lot of the upper classes and middle classes of Cinderbury. But it is this whole city and place unto itself with a totally different vibe and very little authorities.
You don't see many people around telling people what to do. I think it's the kind of thing where a lot of people can get away with things.
Yeah.
We see Amelia's holding a penknife in her pocket because she's aware that dangerous characters are about.
Yeah, and you really have no approachment to get any police help, or then she could be all alone, so she's just going for any little advantage she can get and just be aware that this situations can escalate. Scrapfield is like a combination of a junkyard, landfill and a favela, you know, like these Brazilian favelas, which, not to diss on the favelas, because actually I think there's a lot of amazing things happen there. And just like the favelas, yeah, a lot of amazing things happen in Scrapfield. There's a lot of opportunities in this, but it's an informal development that the city is just throws their hands up with, ignoring.
Ignoring. Yeah.
And it just speaks to the desperation of people that they're so poor they have to go out to somewhere where they can build a shack or a shanty and commute back into the city to work.
But there's a beauty to this place as well. It's kind of like, because the authorities aren't looking at this, people can have a freedom that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, and an emergent society. Like, people are striving to help their neighbours, build places, build institutions, get themselves electricity, get themselves water. Again, like the favelas.
Yeah, exactly. And we can see there's a lot of enterprise going on with the horror of the rats and chips that we see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is, again, it's kind of like they have their own version of fast food, but they're eating the vermin, you know, which is a combination of keeping the vermin down, but also having kind of something to eat out. But at the same time, it's obviously very dangerous and not best. And obviously we see these little rat pelts as well, so you can see it's a cruel place. We shouldn't have too much sympathy for vermin, but these little creatures are just being harvested, hunted for food.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, again, we're quite mean to rats. Rats aren't that bad. They just happen to hold disease. That's really their problem.
Yeah, well, they happen to hold disease and they're encroaching on our turf. I'm not against, again, I'm quite happy to kill a rat, but
Oh, yeah.
I can sympathise with the rats. I think we sometimes totally...
They're very intelligent.
They're very intelligent, absolutely. Very social, very intelligent, very like us in many ways. They're more like us than a lot of other creatures.
They are. I think that's probably one of the reasons we despise them so much.
Yeah.
Is that they are
honestly.
so like us.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels to be drawn for sure. And so she makes her way through Scrapfield and she eventually gets to Jimmy's Bits and Pieces.
And this thug goes by her, and she's a little bit put on edge by him, but she lets it go, and she goes over to this kind of grotesque man who is very sexist.
Jimmy himself.
Very, very sexist.
Yeah. He's kind of gross character that you meet in your life. That we all know these people. We all have bumped into these people at least, not if we don't know them.
When we wrote him originally, he was much more grotesque. I think we were. We
I
were
mean,
quite.
we're still pretty harsh about him, and we don't want to shame his appearance as well. It's more who he is as a person. He's creepy. He's just. Some people are write-offs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we've said when we were writing this was that it was almost me getting back at all those horrible men that would be leering at me when I was a child.
Yeah, and
When I
all
was a
the
child.
horrible, weird old guys that would like almost hit on you at the bus stop.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and they'd be so much old. Like I'm not talking like a guy in his 40s. I'm talking about 80-year-old men hitting on a 19-year-old.
Yeah. And you're not talking about like a small comment where it's like, "Oh, you look very well. I hope you have a great day" or anything. No, it's like hitting on you.
To the point of being so obvious and making everybody
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable. Yeah, absolutely. So she has to deal with this guy. And at first he just totally disregards her. He thinks, "Who is this?" They probably thinks of her as urban elite. Who's this freaking weird hipster character coming into my shop? And thinks she knows about machines. She's a woman. Why would she know about machines? She's a young woman. Like, no way.
Where and like assuming that it's for her father, not for her, which just shows that level of
Yeah.
sexism. But then she finds that she kind of flirts with him to make him more
Yeah,
amenable.
Amelia plays it cool. You can see that she's used to dealing with people like this, and she has to make compromises and just do her best because she has to get cheap parts all the time. And this is the best place to get it because other people will be deterred from getting these parts. Scrapfield has lots of parts because there's so many junkyards here. It's a dumping ground for the city, and there's a dumping grounds, unfortunately, for automatons' bodies. And so there's good parts to be had for cheap to help the orphanage.
Exactly, and one of the great things about Larkin is that he actually often deals with these things, so she doesn't often go into Scrapfield to deal with this,
Yeah.
but she's done it enough times to know what they're like.
Yeah, and I think she would have loved Larkin to do this, but she just has to get things done. She's got a lot of bots for her. She can't wait. But yeah, 100%. This is where Larkin would come in handy because Larkin's extremely social and can navigate these situations.
Also,
very
he's
well.
a man, which really
And he's a
helps
man.
the
He
situation.
won't get the same. And he's a scrapper. He's a Scrapfield local.
He has clout.
I'm sure they'd view him as a blow-in and a toff as well. But he has some clout, yeah.
He's quite this horrible man who she has to kind of manipulate to get what she wants, which is kind of mad because she's offering to pay him for these things. But still, the difficulty of even just getting him to serve her was a lot. So she deals with him pretty well. And there's this lack of voice discs everywhere. She goes from stool to stool and still can't get these parts. And usually they're quite common parts, so it's strange to her that she can't find them. But at least she gets the leg, which should help that automaton.
Yeah, something weird's going on, yeah.
But when she's leaving, the thug crosses her again. And he's watching her. He makes her so uncomfortable.
Yeah, and then he's got a bird tattoo on his forearm.
Yeah, and we may find out more about that in the next episode.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's just so that's a little bit about the chapter, but we also have some other things to discuss.
Yeah, so recently I've actually a little while ago now, but still it's going off. I posted some videos about AI because AI stole our book and how I think as a writer, if you're using AI to make your promotional stuff, so that might be book covers, that might be art for your social media page, I think it discredits you as a writer and makes your audience question how much you are actually writing. Personally, for me, if I see someone posting AI art as a writer, it makes me question their ability to write.
100%. I think a line drawn where, say, you want to use it for conceptualizing and storyboarding and mood boarding, but even then it has problems. But I think it's another...
I wouldn't even go that far. I think it could be okay for research, and I think it can also be okay. for learning things. So if you're trying to find out, oh, what is the best way to use a comma or a certain piece of punctuation, how should I, then that's fine.
No,
You
yeah,
know,
grammar, help with grammar 100%.
learning
I
about
think,
things, it's actually a great tool to teach, but it's not a great tool. You shouldn't be generating things from it, I guess.
yeah,
is where
I think you've made the distinction before about, yeah, generative AI is a bit part of the problem. If it's part of the toolkit, I'm not against it. And even you can't move for AI now, and there's a lot of machine learning baked into all sorts of tools that we use in software, etc. And I don't really have a problem with that. I said in a previous episode, like, if you're an environmental designer for a video game or for an animated film or something, and you want to lay down foliage and you don't have to place every piece of foliage by hand, I think it's great. If an AI tool can learn how foliage should naturally be placed on some geometry or some terrain or something, then that's a really good use of AI. I think that's fantastic. I've no problem with that AI. Likewise with grammar. I mean, especially with grammar, because grammar is a very specific set of rules that we should follow to try and improve our communication. That makes sense. It's generative AI that's the biggest problem. I think another person had brought up in some of the comments on your video, like they were using generative AI as part of their iterative process. And while I think there's big, deep pitfalls with that, I'm actually less against that as well, so long as the finished product isn't just a facsimile of what the AI has produced.
Yeah, what I think about that piece, so that person was talking about how they would use it, but then they would also hire artists to try and get it perfectly right. So
Yeah.
it was more about trying to get the concept. And while I still think there's many problems, generating imagery is a very high cost energy problem. But this person said that they had a localized AI, so it wasn't as big of a problem. But there is a big problem with AI in so many different aspects of the way that it's used, how it's, the data centers,
it's not just
the
one
fact
aspect,
that it uses up water and is making people's water undrinkable. We have the problem with the people who own it, the way that it is messing up our economy. There's so many problems.
Yeah, I mean, the RAM shortage as well, and the just huge inflation of PC components that's really negatively affecting people in organizations.
And of course job losses as well.
That's a huge element as well. Job loss, yeah.
There's so many problems with AI, but I think when it comes to credibility, there are so many other options.
Yes, this is the fundamental.
Than using AI. And people genuinely think that they can't do anything without AI, and I don't understand. We didn't use AI to make our book. I did the art. We wrote the book together. We got our friend Dylan to edit it. And while it's a long, hard process to get everything together, we're making this podcast now, and this just takes so much time.
Well, we hired Dylan as well. Him. Like, at the end of the day, we respected his time. And I don't think an AI could have done what he did.
No, not at all. And he also gave us vital feedback on it as it went.
And let's stress as well, neither of us are flush for cash. Like,
no,
I think you're doing all right, but like, you're still struggling day to day. I struggle day to day. Like, I don't earn much at all. Do not have a big income. It's you scrape together, you save. You say, I don't want, I can't go out drinking, or I can't buy that video game. I can't. You skip out on things so that you have money to do this hobby. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, you put little bits of money aside all the time. That's what we were doing. Because, at the time of that, we were saving so much for the house. And I barely had any money to rub together. And now we've got the house, I still don't have any money to rub together because it's all going into the house. The house takes it all. House, So,
And that was a culmination of you and your partner's efforts for years and saving for years. Yeah, 100%. Like, a lot of hard work. You didn't get this just out of pure privilege,
But the thing is, you can do this without AI. People have been doing this without AI for a long time. And the idea that you must use AI because there's so much work is like, you aren't willing to put the work in to make this thing that you love, to do this.
This also came up where people were complaining that if they hired artists, or when they did hire artists, that they couldn't get their vision realized. And there's really two things. One is you have to learn to compromise your vision and share your creative endeavors with others. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like, I think your art is fantastic. I absolutely am a huge fan of your art. But like, I can quibble at little things about the art, or like think that, I wish it was like more broody, or I wish it was more like this, or a bit more edgy, or whatever it is that I have a critique of your art. but I trust your creative perspective. And it nearly always turns out better. I can't think of a time it didn't turn out better because
we were
of
talking
trusting
about
you.
this earlier, and we've realised, so because we wrote the book together, you know, there's a lot of times where I'll have this one image and you'll have a different one, and we'll have to compromise.
Yeah.
And at the time we might be annoyed at it or feel frustrated, but afterwards we realise that it's better for that.
Absolutely. So I think there's also crazy amount of people that stand for AI and who just want to fight tooth and nail. And the amount of people who think that we're talking about we want to get rid of AI completely, or we don't want it to be part of the future, or we think that a sentient AI stole our book. That's another huge thing. I think we'll need to get into these topics again in a future episode. But there is so much unhinged takes that are just extremely
There is.
silly.
One of the things that really annoy me is people love to use this rhetoric of like, oh, all authors should write their books with a pen and paper, as if that's the same thing.
That's not the
Don't
same
write
thing,
your
exactly.
book with AI. That isn't the same as me asking you not to use tools that are available to you. It's me asking you
Yeah.
to actually write your book.
Yeah, I wonder to what degree that is now people that are going to grow up with AI as such a standard tool that they're going to think it's inseparable from software, even though we had lots of sophisticated software and tools without huge large language models or machine learning. You don't always need that, you know?
So earlier I saw this note on Substack and this just hit me, and I feel like that's really relevant right now. So it's by Genovia. That's her Substack. And this is what she said. Just saw a note by a woman who said writers are crazy if they're not using AI these days. Immediate block. Sitting at an electric piano while it presses its own keys, beaming with pride as if you're Chopin, is full tilt, batshit crazy.
That's a great analogy for it.
It's such a great analogy because I am so sick of people acting like, oh, they are great artists, they are great writers, and it's like,
or like they have to do
the
this.
work?
Like, how else am I going to have a theme song for
Yeah.
my thing? You know, but for my book or for my video game or for my web series or whatever. But no, actually, and it underlies the point as well, because if you sit in front of a keyboard and synthesize some music, it's all right for some of the AI to say, go, give me this tune here, and then do a bit of remixing. That we can understand as creativity. It's the idea of just sitting forth and being like, oh, I don't like that. Play something else. Okay, a little bit more like this. Okay, like that. And then saying, okay, I wrote this song. You know, I'm a
it's
genius.
Like, basically, you're managing the AI.
Yeah.
You're not doing the work, you're being the manager.
Yeah. And I just don't think, especially, this is equivalent to as well the songs being stolen from somebody else. So like a whole load of music is input that you pirated and put into this keyboard, and then you're like talking to it and saying, okay, give me more like Tin Lizzy. Oh, less like Tin Lizzy. Oh, more like Guns N' Roses. Okay, less of the Guns N' Roses, but rather that riff from Bohemian Rhapsody. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you know, that's not.
You're not making.
You realize
the thing.
that you are not the author. You're stealing parts and making this, and you're not even doing a craftsmanship of collaging these things together. The AI is doing that for you as well. So at some point, it is creatively devoid.
It's creatively devoid, but it's also a loss of skill. We are losing skills by doing this rather than actually doing the thing. And then where are we in years to come? Do people know how to play guitar anymore?
Yeah.
Do people know how to write a sentence?
Yeah. I'm sure they would just argue, oh, so be it. That's just the inevitable future. We don't have to have any of that, you know.
What?
We have to get
devastating idea.
Yeah, I know. And we'll have to get it more into a future episode. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for
listening.
listening. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and we'll catch you next week.
All right. Catch you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening. This episode was written, produced and performed by Arfin and P. Rose. No AI-generated content was used in the making of this podcast. Thank you to Alex Grohl, who created the music within this episode. If you would like to support the Cindery Chronicles and our writing, please consider sharing this episode or purchasing a copy of Copper Hollow available on Amazon or Kindle. You can also find exclusive content on the Cindery Chronicles Substack. If Copper Hollow is not available in your region, please contact us at copperhollowbook@gmail.com. Your time, engagement and feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for listening.